Alright, just wait a few seconds. Alright, everybody. Hey, guess what? We've got a living star today. Ed is here and alive and kicking. Today is Saturday, December 29th, 2018. And, well, Ed's probably been sitting on that hospital bed wondering what kind of things he's going to tell you guys. So, Ed, why don't you take it away?
Cool. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank you all. Yeah, it's been interesting. I'm not in a hospital or a medical facility this evening. I am, out and about, and that is a blessing. And so I appreciate that. So that way I'm not continually bouncing back and forth to the hospital. I hope I don't have to keep doing that. That's what I'm hoping for, but I can't predict the future. So, but anyhow, that's beside the point. So anyhow, I wanted to get in a couple of points tonight. I've been going back and forth today on the internet with a lot of people because they were going with Article 1 and Article 3 courts. Excuse me. And I'm trying to get people to comprehend the facts of what an Article 1 court is and an Article 3 court is. So when you get into Article 3 courts, that's your Constitution. That gives you rights. An Article 1 court is administrative rules, and you have no rights. And that's run by the Vatican. And people go, well, what do you mean? Well, your Article 1 courts are religious church courts. And let's clarify that. Yes, type it in. They're called legislative courts. That's the structure that your legislative works of the structure. Because remember, everybody keeps saying we're a British colony. We are not. They've been trying to screw us for years. And they can't take our Constitution away, so the only way they can do it is trying to convince people to be stupid, uneducated. And majority of people are stupid and undereducated. They don't know what a right of an arm is, and then they don't teach each other how to defend themselves or to learn what an arm is. Everybody wants to go off on these words, and it's very important to learn our words and our circumstances, because the Constitution says arms. It does not say gun. It does not say weapon. All right, your nunchucks. The Supreme Court just said nunchucks are considered an arm. Of course, I already knew all that. I knew that when I went through something back in 1979 on that. But see, this is the point that people's got to wake up and stop listening to these people that are not dictating the truth. I mean, I've gone through people and arguing with people dealing with taxes, and they're trying to convince people on the internet and stuff that, the 16th Amendment was ratified. Hate to tell you, liars. The 16th Amendment has never been ratified. It was administratively passed just like the 14th Amendment. And that's the one thing I did prove to everybody. The 14th Amendment was never ratified. It was administratively passed. The last thing that was ratified was the 13th Amendment. And that's title of nobilities and attorneys and lawyers that cannot be in your court system. And that's the one thing that people have got to realize. That when you go to these de facto court systems, you are turning yourself over to the devil, or you're turning yourself over to man, whatever way you want to call it, and you're giving your authority up. So what do you want? Do you want freedom, or do you want to be a slave? You can't have both. That's the oxymoron of saying you're a sovereign citizen. Okay, either you're a citizen or you're sovereign. Because a citizen owns his authority to the corporation, the state, to the king, or to the Bible. And I've been arguing with people on the Bible all afternoon. And it's like, we shouldn't be arguing about this crap. We should be comprehending what the Constitution is. Because the Constitution gives you rights. Religion don't give you rights at all. Period. End of story. Okay? But I'm not against that. That's the one thing some people need it in their life. That's the only foundation that they have. So we need to support that because the Constitution gives man and woman that right to even educate their own children on that right, not privilege. Okay? But immigration is privilege, but see, we're not going to screw with that because nobody's going to screw with immigration on a religion. But their religion doesn't have a right to dictate to us in our country because our religion in this country is called the Constitution. And people will argue with me on that one, but see, the Constitution gives you rights. That's why the Constitution is my religion, my Bible, because the Constitution gives me rights. Nothing else does. It doesn't give you rights. The Constitution gives you rights instead of privileges. So it depends on where you want to read, how you want to take this, and this is the circumstances that we're dealing with. And this is the one thing I've been passing out too, especially with taxes. Natives cannot be taxed. And once people realize that natives cannot be taxed, and we start standing on that, and you can't be taxed for your labor. And that's the one thing that you've got to start standing up and realize. Your labor is your money, your structure. They can't tax you on it. They can't take that from you. And I've argued with some people, and I finally got some people convinced. I said, all right, have you ever seen a W-4 form? Well, yeah, on the right side, you see where it says exempt. Did you ever bother checking exempt? No, because if I do that, I'm going to go to jail. Well, it's like, folks, think about it. Why do you think they have exempt in the corner? See, that's the one thing. Learn, read, study, pay attention to the truth. Because the IRS has no authority at all. They're MFF out of Puerto Rico, and that's run by the Vatican. Has nothing to do with we, the people of the United States of America, a corporation. Even a corporation of America, it really doesn't have anything to do with that with us at all. And so when you start stepping up and you start putting these pieces together, it's like Article 1, Section H. Washington, D.C. is a building that's outside the United States. So when you start accepting these facts and realities, and, this state might not impose a charge for your enjoyment of the right by federal constitution. Now, that's the one thing that you need to look at some of that. What does the federal constitution mean? Is that our constitution of the 48 states, or is that the British Constitution? So remember, Britain has a constitution, it's just like Canada does, and Canada's constitution is 1992. And people say that gives them right, but no, actually it does not give them any rights in Canada and England. It's set up to teach you, to confuse you, and to elude you basically over the cliff with the other sheep. The only place that has rights in existence in the world is the 48 states. Alaska and Hawaii are not part of the United States. They're part of the United States Inc. Incorporation, but they're not part of we the people. And that's where the IMF comes in. That's why when I've been going with people over the taxes with Indians, and you can type that in, and people say, well, the Indians get this, the Indians get that. No, if you're a native is an Indian. See, read what the law is. Quit listening to these other idiots out there that are out there screwing your minds up for their own personal and financial gain. Okay, because if you don't have to pay labor for taxes, and your taxes of your labor is yours, that you don't have to pay taxes, think about it. Open thy mind. That's like Article 1 of the court system. Article 1 is the legislative court system. Article 3 is the Constitution court system. And I've been going back and forth with that all morning and early afternoon with people. And Article 3 gives you rights. Article 1 does not. You leave your Constitution at the door. You walk in, and if you don't have a grand jury, you're giving yourself over to that judge to decide if he wants to put you in jail. If he's going to execute you in that courtroom, that happens. So people you got to read this stuff. You got to pay attention to this stuff. It's not a game. And you have to file your rights. And, Lighthouse Law Club has a good one on owning yourself. So does Rob Ryder. And so look at these videos out there, how to own yourself. File your paperwork. You have to file separation of lawful and legal. And when you separate yourself from lawful and legal, now you have rights. Even legal citizens, so long as they pay their income tax and everything by the tax or IRS code, because immigrants don't have rights, period, end of story. And that's the immigration stuff that I've been arguing with the 14th Amendment when I wrote for Judge Scalia before he was assassinated. And so when you start stepping out of the movie and you start realizing all these rights compared to privileges and knowing your standards and your standing, and you have to know your standing in court. You cannot assume, because when people assume, you lose. And that is the one thing that is so screwy in our country. Too many people will assume their rights. Well, it's like when you get pulled over by a cop, and everybody people will yell to a cop, I have rights, I have rights. Well, what rights do you have? How come you're not quoting to the public servant what your rights are? How come you're not quoting, not yelling at him, quoting, hey, here's what the administrative rules says. You're a tax collector. This is what you're doing. Talk to them. Most of them are just, when you start getting into that type of stuff, they're just going to drive away. You're not there for an argument. I mean, it's like right now what's going on in Sweden, or France, I mean. Right now in France, they're burning the interest of banks down right now. I mean, how many people are paying attention to that? It's not in the mainstream media because they don't want to do that like Iceland and Greenland, where they're hanging the bankers in the middle of the street. So, and that is the point. When you sign a contract with these guys and they got you on the end of the ropes, per se, is that you have to start standing up and doing this. People say, well, I shouldn't have to do it. They're supposed to do my job. They're supposed to do that. No, the point is that we have to know who's legal in this country. We have to know who's lawful in this country. That is our responsibility. Okay, and that's the one thing. Once you start realizing your responsibility to the circumstances of your family, your constitution, your friends, and your neighbors, that's how we're going to save this country. And I'm putting together the stuff that I've been saying I've been working on for a while, and I got the other pieces. Now I'm sitting down and starting to correlate it and putting it together so that way you can get that out. Because that's the one thing, when I get this thing out, it's going to shock a lot of people. Because people think they have all these rights. But once they start reading this stuff, what I'm putting out about human trafficking and how your counties do it, you're going to be surprised. And if you don't stand up, then you don't have a right, period. And I ask you to leave the hell out of our country. Because, you got this deal where they're blaming Trump dealing with these immigrant kids who have been dead or dying. Excuse me, blame the Democratic Party who did it. Blame the mother and father who came over to this country as a terrorist. They came to this country. We didn't invite them. They don't have rights to walk into your home and tell you how to live. And that's what they're doing to you. They're walking in your home, telling you how to live, and you have to accept that. We don't have to accept that. And that is the one thing that people have got to get that through their heads. It's like right now, and there's been, in the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of people have been harmed, injured, and murdered by immigrants. And then, a couple of them have slipped through the mainstream media, but most of it's covered up. And so seeing that they're covering up these criminal activities of these Democrats are covering this up. And Donald Trump was right when he said the Democrats are liable and responsible. And if you've been on my Facebook pages, you'll see I've been putting the administrative rules and laws up that state it. Okay, and then when you go back to the immigration law, that goes back to 1787. Everybody knows I've put it up. I've done the research. It's been filed with Congress. Nobody has ever disputed me, and they agreed to it. So when do you start standing up for your children? When do you stop lying to your children? See, we just went through with Christmas and the holidays and all this stuff. And so that is the one thing that people got to realize, that none of that matters. What matters is what you're protecting your children on. It matters what you're protecting your home on. And that's what we've got to do. If we don't protect our soil, we don't have rights. And people go, well, it's the land. And it's like, no. Land, when you look at the definition of land, that's in the sky. That's above the soil. That's fantasy here and there. So that is the one thing that you've got to start researching these things, questioning these things. Most people don't want to question them. They just do what they're told. And then when they end up in problems, it's like me. I researched when I was in the hospital. I went through AFib. So they were talking about, restarting my heart, jumping me up. I was glad that they, did the medication and what they did to me. Okay, so that way I didn't have to go in for electrical shock to restart my heart, or to even put a pacemaker in, or possibly heart surgery, or possibly a heart replacement. So that was my decisions 10 days ago. So, step out and look at these things. So, yes, I'm still dealing with some severe medical issues, but I'm still here. So, and that's why I've got the goals that I've got right now, where I've got to get these things done. Because if I don't get them done, nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else is going to explain the stuff to the general public. And at least when this stuff gets out, I ask you to pass it around. Don't be bashful. Because once you see what the public servants and the structure of your corporation is you have to protect your children. It's your responsibility, not the schools, not the police department. We already know the police department doesn't have a right to protect you. That's a proven fact. So it depends on where you want to go. How do you want to handle the issue? And so that is the one thing that you've got to start working with your family, your circumstances on these things, and protecting your bloodline. Because the bloodline, that's where people don't get it. Your bloodline means everything. It means if you're lawful or legal. That means if you have a standing in the court system, you have to know you're standing in the court system. Court system don't give a shit about you, because the court system is an inanimate object, and you expect people to have compassion in the public service sector? Sometimes they do, but majority of the time they don't. They go after their paycheck. Their paycheck means more to them than your own life. But I did get lucky with a couple of doctors, because when we were doing the medication, they respected me on that and let me do the research. I want to see what you're giving me. I want to know the side effects. And they were impressed that I'm doing the research right there when they're giving me the names of the medications and stuff. And that's exactly what I was doing, is doing the research to prove it. And that's the one thing that we have to prove these things. It's not hearsay. And you get all these people out there when they want to talk to hearsay and do all this stuff and bring all this stuff out that don't get reality. Then they want to argue about whatever their opinion is, but their opinions are like diapers that need to be changed regularly. They have no rights. It's just a shitty deal with an opinion. And anybody knows an opinion in court doesn't matter. And that's already been proven. Opinions don't matter in court. So that is the one thing that when it comes down to it, how do we solve these issues? Now, I'm working on this other affidavit. I got the other affidavits up, and if you guys are willing to sign those things and get them out. I've been dealing with people all over the internet the last 3 days dealing with Cape Brown. And they're like, they can't believe what's coming down the pike of these new taxes and stuff. And it's like, go sign the affidavit I wrote. If you really want her out, sign it. File it with the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. and Congress. Oh, we don't want to file it. We don't want to do this. We don't want to cause an issue. Then shut the hell up. I get tired of people. It's like I'm getting people that keep emailing me and sending me these petitions. A petition is a whiner, is a crier. Petitions don't do a goddamn thing but just make you look like an ass. That's the legal terminology of a petition. Read it. And I put that up, too, with the legal petition, the structure of a petition. But criminal charges, when you file criminal charges, they can't do anything because now they have to respond to the criminal charges. And once the criminal charges are filed and people start standing up to the criminal charges, they're screwed. And that's where you have to do it. Like I said, it's your responsibility to stand up to these things. And if you don't stand up to them, it's like, with us natives, our rights not to pay taxes and stuff. It's in the deal. And then I've had people say, well, how do we get the roads? How do we do that? Well, everything you buy, your gas, your tires, your spark plugs, pays for the roads. When you register your vehicle, of course, I don't play that game. I have a covered wagon, and so I'm battling them right now, and I'll get this affidavit out, and you guys will see what happened with that. But when you have the structure, when they're telling you to keep filing this stuff and to comply with them, you bow to them and you give up your rights. You have no rights. It's like hiring an attorney. You have no rights as hiring an attorney. When you hire an attorney, you actually have no rights, period. And then when you go to court, you have to know what court you're in. You have to know if you're in an Article 1 court or an Article 3 court. And how do you do that? You make sure that you put an affidavit in the court to clarify that. And you want to make sure that the oath of the judge is not to the corporation. He has an oath to the Constitution. Because the judges have two oaths, one to the Constitution and one to the corporation. And see, that's the one thing, is getting the proper education of determining how these circumstances and these issues really work compared to what we've been misled for generations. And so many people are still misled, and they still follow through with all this stuff. And they still run around and play these things, not only with their own mind trying to justify the criminal activity that's going around, they're trying to justify it in their own mind. You can't justify stupidity, because stupidity will always prevail. That's a fact. That's a reality. So this is the one thing dealing with, I was bringing out and getting this out today. You know, people have rights. Persons have privileges. Okay, so, and that's the one thing. And then the other side, I got another point that I've been putting out. If you are saying we, the people, you're a corporation member, you are not part of a lawful bloodline native. And so we'll have that up on the internet so you can actually read the administrative rules on this structure and follow it, use it. That's why when we say, what I say is that when I write these affidavits up and stuff, I use their words, their administrative circumstances, their corporation rules. Okay, when you're using their rules, what are you going to do? You're not doing hearsay. You want to stay out of hearsay, and this is the one thing that I was dealing with people this afternoon on the internet and yesterday on the internet, and people were going crazy on, oh, well, we want to sue these people. Well, all right, prove you're an injured party. Prove the injury. Well, they did this and the other thing, and I talked to a couple people in email today or messenger, and it's like, prove it. Well, they did this. Well, and they're not telling me their proof is that they got the evidence from the jail when they assaulted them, you know, and then go after the cameras in the jail, file the Freedom of Information Act. So when you start doing this and they're refusing, and then that's a cover-up. Now they've committed fraud. And I've sent out the information, too, dealing with when they do that, especially when they you file your paperwork, and if they don't file it, the file clerk goes to jail for 1 year minimum, mandatory. There's no compassion and feelings in these things. See, and when you start having all this compassion and feelings for these people that are destroying your lives, you know, that's the problem we have right now today. And then they're getting away with it. They're laughing to the bank. They're laughing to the corporation funerals of your body, because your body is owned by the birth certificate bond unless you filed and own yourself. So until you file it and own yourself, you have no rights. And once you start standing that, yeah, you get bumpy roads. But you don't be afraid of them. And then all of a sudden you start getting respect from these men and women. You can't go out and do stupid stuff or, you know, hey, you know, flopping your feathers and, you know, and puffing yourself up, you know, because remember, once you do that, once you start getting your rights intact, you're not supposed to have contact with them, because they won't contact you. You don't contact them. It's that simple. I mean, I know a lot of people, and I watch them on the internet all the time. They file their paperwork, and then they want to go back and I'm an activist, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to protect. No, you could protect or help people out, but you don't do it publicly like that. You stay in the back area, because they know who's doing what. You're already in the computer. You're already in the system. You want to be the shadow. The shadow knows. We all grew up listening to that. So that is the one thing. When you know what's going on, learn how to use their system for your protection. You know, that's what I've done. That's why I'm still here right now today. I mean, look, since last July, I've basically died 5 times. Been in and out of the hospital 9 times. You know, I've been on life support, oxygen. I've been on, you know, I'm still on oxygen, but I'm still got a lot of other stuff that I'm dealing with that, where they've had to give me different medications to bring my heart back and a few other things. Okay, but see, that's the one thing. When I talk to these doctors, I talk to them respectfully but forcefully, that I know their system. That's why I want to know what they're putting in my body. I'm not just going to accept what they're putting in my body, because that is my job, responsibility as an adult, to know what they're doing to me. And that's your responsibility as an adult, to know what they're doing to you or your children. You know, it's like I was going through with another group today, dealing with children's rights, and people are going, you know, they've done this to me and my children, and it's like, what have they done? Where's your proof? You know, that's the point. Where is the proof? See, you have to prove these things. It's not hearsay. And the minute you start doing hearsay, you're not living in reality. You know, everybody knows hearsay is not admissible in court, but it's like that's the one thing I'm writing up in this instrument too, and I'll be putting the facts in it. You want a court that is a grand jury. And a grand jury is the only one who could write an indictment. A grand jury is the only one who could accept a case. Or if you have a case that's over $20, but remember, if you have a case that's over $20 you have to put $20 of silver down for the case. And people go, oh, I use de facto dollars. Well, that's how they could dismiss your case. They could throw it out. But if you put $20 silver piece down, they can't throw it out. And then we have the other stuff on the new.org and trackers. You don't need to pay attorney fees and all that other stuff. So once you start taking the responsibility and comprehending how your system works, how your public servants are supposed to work for you, you start getting a lot of respect from your public servants. And don't forget, your medical providers are your public servants as well. And so you do start getting respect, and they know what's going on. You know, so that's the whole point. It depends on how you plan on protecting yourself. And see, and if you don't pretend on protecting yourself, this is the problem we have. Because if you're not doing that to protect yourself and your children, and then we wonder, and everybody wants to bitch why they're getting away, stealing children, and doing all the harm they're doing to us. Well, the other point is when you're paying taxes, you're agreeing to that harm. Sounds crazy, but it's true. Because when you're agreeing to pay taxes to the devil, you're agreeing to the devil's terms. And remember, taxes are voluntary. It says it right in your W-4 and W-2 forms. So it's very important that you read the real facts. Don't get told, and if you don't understand some of these words which you read, look it up in your dictionaries and look it up in the Bouvier and Black Law dictionaries and cross-reference. So you comprehend what the words mean, not what somebody's telling you or what you're assuming. Because we know what assume means, an ass out of you or me. So we shouldn't be living this way. So once we can stop all these problems we're living and all these circumstances that are going on around us, now we can start changing the system and putting it back, because it's we the people, the system. It's our responsibility to make sure our public employees in our system work for us. Our forefathers put a system, and everybody keeps going, well, we need to change the system. How about learning the system before you assume? How about doing the research on, you know, the structure of taxes, how it works? Because they already got the tax money. I mean, it's like auto insurance, and I'm putting that up here. That'll be in this information. You know, auto insurance is already covered, especially when you register your vehicle anyways. And then the other point is you don't have to pay your auto insurance because the banks already have it covered by the interest. Oh, what do they call that? Off of Wall Street. And so I'll be putting all the codes and administrative rules, and you guys, people will have it. And back me up or do the research. Try to prove me wrong. You know, I always love it when people try to prove me wrong. I mean, I enjoy that because, you know, I think there's only been one time that somebody came close. But like I said, I do my research. You know, it's like the original 13th Amendment was the last amendment that was ever passed and ratified. No other amendment could even be passed. No other amendment could be ratified from now on. Because once you're in a corporation, the Constitution is the law of the land. Corporation administrative rules, that's by the corporation, that's not a constitutional structure. You know, you don't have a right to work. You don't have a right to the corporation privileges of working. So once you start realizing that you go out and you don't need business's license and all that stuff, but you have to be responsible for yourself. You have to be responsible for your actions. And so once people start becoming responsible, this is how we're going to make the changes. That's the only way the changes are going to start happening, is by being responsible to these administrative rules that they have and making sure that they follow their administrative rules. Make sure they follow these structures of what's written by their structure. You know, I mean, I always love it when people, you know, come on Especially when I've been doing, these talk shows for some time, and I'm watching people pop up all of a sudden, doing their own talk shows, and everybody's trying to take the time away again. We've been through this before. I don't care. But you want to follow these other people, you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, I know so many people. I've been watching people who follow a lot of these other people, and most of these people, when they follow, they end up in jail. They lose their assets. They lose the structure. But you got to pay attention who's working for you and who's working for the corporation. And that is your responsibility. That's not the cop's responsibility. That's not the district attorney, state attorney general, because remember, they work for the corporation. Without you, they have no income. They have no living. And so I don't remember the code of the IRS, but it's like when they kidnap and hold you for ransom, that's theft of public funds. So that's what you need to file when you're filing your complaints. But you have to file it as an affidavit, a complaint as an affidavit complaint. So if you're going to use their paperwork, they always say, well, you got to use my paperwork. Well, then copy, paste it, and rewrite the paperwork. Serve it with their headlines and stuff, but write the paperwork for you. They can't change it. They can't alter it because they have to agree to those terms because you use their paperwork, but you might have changed some things in it, and they have to honor that. See, that's the point. You got to realize that these men and women work for you. And once you start accepting the facts that, you guys start doing this stuff and put these administrative rules in yourself and knowing what the structure of these administrative rules mean, what you have to do. That's like the other thing that dealing with, the law. And I've been putting that up. Natives don't have to pay taxes. That's part of our treaties. Read the structure. Don't be the sheep running off the cliff with the other idiots. Section 5, all lands technically once belonged all to the natives until the British banks and the religious banks started taking over. That's why you don't use the words land anymore. You use soil, because soil you have a right, land you don't. That's the other point, and that is we have a right to restrict ourselves with border crossings. Natives can stop border crossings. We don't have to deal with that, and that's law. That's Section 6 of the stuff I've been putting out with the United States Constitution, of the 17th Amendment or 18th Amendment. And remember, that's a corporation amendment. So they put these corporation amendments to still protect us, but it's knowing who they're protecting, what, why, and how they're designed to protect us, knowing how they're to be used. And that is the one thing that, once you start realizing what and how they are to be used, you become a lot further. You get a lot of stuff done. And that's the other point, when people want to file their income tax, that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment. The IRS is not a government agency. It's of the IMF. And the other point I wanted to bring to you, like I said, dealing with persons. See, when you use the word person, you're saying that whoever you're talking about, even if you're talking about yourself, you don't exist. You're a dead entity. You have no rights as a person. Literally. People have rights. Persons have no rights. They have privileges. And this is one thing you can look on paying attention to, 22 U.S.C. 611. And I recommend people start reading and go do that. Chase what I'm talking about. Chase these words I'm saying. Go prove it. Because the term of an agent or citizen, you're a foreign domestic terrorist, and that's part of the Trading with the Enemy Act. And if you never read the Trading with the Enemy Act, please read it. Sit down and go over it. So, but anyhow, I'm gonna make it a little short tonight. We're gonna open up the floor, see if anybody's got any comments, and we'll see what happens.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody got anything they would like to add? No comments tonight, huh? Okay.
Mr. Ed,
Go ahead.
call me tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Very important.
Yeah.
Call me.
Yeah, and I sent you that other information. You got that in that message, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you would might enjoy that new one I sent you. I think it was today or yesterday with Florida.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and that's the one thing that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of us that are working back and forth from the east to west coast getting this stuff out, and we're bouncing this stuff off of each other, and we're filing these paperwork, and they don't know what to do. They're freaking out, and that's the one thing that they're freaking out, and we realize, and everybody's going, well, Trump this, Trump that. You know, I've been arguing with people about Trump, dealing with, they're trying to blame Trump because of these kids died. You know, we don't know, and Trump can't be blamed for it. He didn't kill them. He had nothing to do with that. And if you actually read the administrative rules, the Democrats did it. Nancy Pelosi is the one who passed the bill to kill these children. Get off your ass and read this shit. You know, what is that other crazy woman out of the Midwest, the black lady? I can't remember her name right off the top of my head. Not Maxine Waters. She's out of California. But she was doing a live interview today trying to convince the general public about immigration, to open up the borders and all this. Like the Pope is saying, open up the borders. Well, the United States is not open to the world. The United States is supposed to protect our bloodline, not for us to be destroyed to weaken our bloodline. You know, I mean, if you go try to get in the Vatican, you ain't going to get in the Vatican. So that's the people that got to get it. So you have something else to add there, guy? Okay, nope. So, and that's the one thing that when you get this stuff out, you know, and even with the rights to travel, getting this stuff out. And once we start getting this stuff out, because I'm putting this affidavit together when I get this out, this is going to be a good one because I'm going to file, and then once I get this filed, I'm going to go file it in the federal Supreme Court. Seeing that they've done this, and let's go to the argument. Because every time the cases like what I'm getting ready to file has gone to the Supreme Court, have always been won. They don't want it publicly known. So they just basically give you your stamp and you go on your way. And that's what you have to realize, too. There's two stamps in your system of each state. You have one stamp that is the Constitution stamp, and the other stamp is the Corporation of the State stamp. So it is learning the separation of what goes on. And these things are difficult until you've been there, until you've walked the walk or learned the structure of what they've done to us. You know, once you start comprehending what they have totally done to us, you know, going after our rights to travel, going after property taxes. I mean, I'm still battling with them on that, and I've proven property taxes are voluntary. And not only that, it's been proven by the federal Supreme Court that it's voluntary. So, but they want to murder you for the money. Okay, and then and then you think about this, and then they're draining this country from the inside out, called the de facto dollar, because they can't change and alter the Constitution. And then they go, well, we got Article 17 in there, Amendment 17 on your voting. See, the thing is, we're not supposed to vote. Voting is for idiots. You know, because when you have a right, you don't vote on your right. You don't give up your rights. You enforce that right. And that's the whole point, that we've got to make sure we're enforcing our rights, not privileges. So, but anyhow, anybody else got anything they would like to bring up? Man, we're going to get done early tonight. So anyhow, I'll get this other stuff out because I've got the other parties waiting for this information. So I'll have this out here shortly. Once I get this out, I'm asking everybody to start passing this around, because once it starts getting passed around and we start doing this, and you can sit there and notarize it, certify it, and make sure that you're doing it for yourself. Notarize it, certify it, and then that way they cannot screw with you. And that's what you have to do, is protect yourself, your children. That is your responsibility. So if nobody else has nothing to say, we'll call it a night, because I've been having some interesting time medically. People know what's been going on with that. So if nobody's got anything else to say, I'll say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May Mother take care of you and feed you, and may the Creator look over all of us and make sure we all sit there still living.
Thank you very much, Ed. You've been listening to the Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. Today is Saturday, December 29th, 2018. And yeah, it is an early night. It's only 5:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for joining. And as you can hear in Ed's voice, he's pretty tired and kind of a raspy voice, but that's okay. He's still with us. He still can impart information and education. So hopefully catch us tomorrow with Education with Ed, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be going over the other amendment tomorrow night and the 17th amendment, because I got to get back on that one for tomorrow night.
No, all right. And then 17th Amendment, and yep. All right. Bye, guys.